No coge el audio de aquí, que debería cogerlo, pero bueno, como están los altavoces. Alex lo estaba escuchando.
No, I'm okay for now. It's just that we just. Which one is this? 7 remotes. Okay. Ooh, that's not the color. Supposed to be blue. The syntax might look funky. No syntax. Stop it. Can everyone see this? All right. And okay. So what are we going to start? Are we starting? All right. Tell him to shut up. Okay, so can everyone hear me? Because I know I'm on a microphone, but I also tend to yell. So you might hear 2 different sounds. Sorry. So I was supposed to give a different talk. That's not fair to say. I registered to give a different talk. It's my fault. And I realized yesterday the talk that I intended to give only touches a fraction of you. So I wanted to give something that is more interesting and worthwhile me coming here for you. So I decided to give a talk that I gave at YAPC. How many people here were YAPC EU or YAPC NA? Okay, good, because I'm actually trying to reach everyone who didn't raise their hand. Hopefully not because they don't want to be in the spotlight. Oh my God, I'm raising my hand, everyone can see me. So I want to give a talk about what's going on in Perl. And at YAPC, I was supposed to cover the recent stable version of Perl, which is 5.24. And then I decided to cover other stuff instead because I think that are very interesting, not just 5.24. And I thought this time at least I would make it obvious that I want to cover not just 5.24. So I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff in Perl, and I'm going to reach all the way to 5.24, which is the recent stable version. If you have any questions, I will hopefully leave time at the end to answer them. So I think a lot of people here don't know me. That's a good thing for you. But I do have to say who I am, just so you do know. My name is Sawyer. I go by Sawyer X. I work at Booking.com, which sponsored my attendance. We do a lot of stuff with accommodations, and it's a very interesting work environment. I really enjoy it. If you're interested or looking for a new place or looking for other opportunities, come see me after. I do a lot of Perl. I do it a lot for fun. I do it a lot for profit. I like to describe my job as getting paid to do what I would have done anyway, which is really, really nice. It's how you know you got a good job, when you enjoy what you do, and someone even pays you at the end of the month. They're like, hey, this is great. I would have done it for free if you only knew. I'm the project lead for the Answer to Web Framework, which is what I was going to talk about. And I'm also the Perl 5 punking, which means that I'm the project lead for the Perl 5 language. And that's what I thought might be more interesting for a larger amount of people. And, I hate writing bios. So there's a sentence I really enjoy, and I quote it now often, which is, things alter for the worse spontaneously if they be not altered for the better designedly. Francis Bacon said this, and the intent behind this, as I read it, is if you don't plan a change, and if you don't plan for it to be done the right way and to improve when you make a change, it will still happen. It will just be spontaneously when you least expect it, and it will not be for the better. So you either design it to change for better, or it will worsen spontaneously. So stuff breaks, and stuff will break unless you plan the change ahead of time. So what I want to focus on is change, basically. So development. We do a lot of changes in Perl, a ton of changes. We do a lot of development. And once a month, we gather all of these changes that we make into a release. Last month, on the 20th, there was the 5.25.6 release by Aaron Crane. There will be another one on the 20th this month. So in 15 days, 2 weeks and a day, you're going to have another release of Perl. It's a development release that has all the changes that we gathered within that month. That means that every single month, you get a new version of Perl. Every single month. And it's a development version that is released every time by a different person, because we try to kind of have a nice pool of people who make those releases, so it's not a job that kind of tires you out and you don't do it anymore ever again. So it tends to be people from the same pool, but we're enlarging that pool. And it's a version that you can actually download, you can build, you can install, you can run, you can do everything with it. But it's a development release. It's not stable release. The reason that we release it is in order to check and test all of those changes that we've done throughout that month. So the next, there are currently a lot of changes happening pretty much every day in Perl. And then on the 20th, we're going to release them again and test all of them together. So how do we test them? We test them by smoking. Smoking is a term that could be used for different things. In Perl, when we say smoking, we actually mean testing. It's a term that we use for testing. So to smoke something, it means to test it. And we do a lot of smoking of the Perl 5 core itself, the language itself. We have a ton of testing suite. The TAP, Test Anything protocol, it's from Perl because we wanted to test everything, or anything. And that's the TAP protocol that was invented in Test More that everyone uses. It was invented in the core. And we test everything. We have what's called Smoke Me branches, which are branches that test specific features. Like I'll write something and I want to see how it works on different operating system. I'll create a branch with that, and then we'll test all those changes and different stuff. But we also do for the development release. So when we release it onto CPAN, the entire testing platform of Perl tests Perl itself, that development version, against CPAN, against all the tester machines available. But then we also do CPAN smoking, which basically means testing against CPAN. So you test CPAN against that. So you take all the modules that you know and all the modules that you can, and you run their tests on the latest version of Perl, on the latest development version of Perl, not the latest stable. So you can see if a development version broke something on CPAN. And then there could be a lot of reasons why it broke. We made a change that someone was accounting for, and we made a mistake. Or maybe we made a change and someone was using it, but they shouldn't have, because it really is undocumented or specifically documented as internals, and we'll change it. Maybe it's deprecated and they don't care. There are a lot of reasons why things could break. Some of it our fault, some of it not our fault. Unfortunately, one of the problems with responsibility is that we sometimes have to fix things that aren't our fault, because we have to be responsible and not just say, well, you made a mistake, I'm sorry. That we would like to do it, I would love to do it, we can't. Many times people break things because they assume on things that we explicitly said you should not do, and then they do it, and then it breaks, and then people say, we know they did something wrong, but we want to use it anyway. And then we either work with them to fix it, sometimes we'll revert something that we did correctly, but we'll revert it just so things won't break. There are a lot of these considerations. They're meant to be very practical. So politics gets in the way a lot because, well, we can be technically correct. We have to be practical in what you actually do, and that's the politics of this is wrong, but we still do it and we depend on it. So you can be responsible, or you can be technically correct. We'd like to be technically correct, but we prefer to be responsible. Okay. Then we have stable releases. Once a year, we take all of those development versions, collect all of them together, and put out one stable version. We actually do it in steps. We have a development cycle that slowly progresses into full freeze. So at some point, the next development version cannot have contentious changes, which means changes that people might seriously complain about. For example, removing dot from ink, which is by default one of the directories that are used in order to load modules. Alva was talking about this, and we are going to change in 526. At least that's our full intent. And that change can only go early enough so we test it out enough. It won't go the version before the stable, because that's not enough time. Some of the changes that are allowed before stable are documentation changes. If you have a typo, you can still make it. But if maybe you want to introduce a new feature, that's not going in the version before. They'll go into an earlier development version, and then slowly we'll go into a full freeze. You cannot change anything except typos or small documentation patches, stuff like that. And then when we hit stable, we kind of know that it's stabled and that it's good. And then we release that stable, which means that's the version that you use, that you actually use, because you're not going to use development version, because like maybe there's just a feature there that we haven't tested out fully yet, you know. But maybe you do it to help us test stuff. So these stable releases, you get them every single year. There's a new Perl every single year, a new development version every month, and a new stable version every year that you download and install. And how do you get those? You get them from your different distributions. If it's Linux, if it's BSD, Solaris, all of these. There are a ton more. You get them maybe using Strawberry Perl, maybe you use Active State. They all provide on Windows new versions of Perl. So if you want to use 524 is the latest version, it's available. You can download it, you can install it, you can use it. If you're using ProBrew, you can just type in ProBrew and you can install the latest version. You can also install development versions with ProBrew. So you can play with those things and you can see how your code will work on the latest development version. Maybe you want to test out optimizations and see, did this really optimize the things that I cared about? It's really cool. So you can use ProBrew as well, and then it doesn't matter if you're on which distribution you're on. But they ship their own that they might include additional patches that they think are important. Okay, pretty cool. We also backport. So we effectively, you always want to support the latest version of your project because that's what you develop on. The problem is that Perl has people using different versions of it in production all the time. So, well, we can say, well, okay, we fixed it. It's going to be in the next version of Perl. Maybe it's important enough to fix in the current version of Perl. Maybe it's important enough to fix in the previous version of Perl. Because maybe to you, the previous version is the current version. Like maybe you're not using the latest one. You're using 2 versions ago. And that's your current version. You're not going to upgrade tomorrow, but you still need a certain fix. So we will backport stuff, which means that we will take things from the present and sometimes future and bring them into the past and release a new version of a past one. So for example, we already released 524. It's out. That's it. You can download, you can use it, and it's going to be available in Debian. I don't know if it's already on Debian. Does anyone know if 524 is already on Debian? I think 522, but I don't know if 524. But it is? Is it?
I think that Alex is working.
He's not available. Okay.
Now.
So 524 will be available in Debian. You can download and install it. So now let's say you found the problem. And let's say it's a security problem. We can fix it and then wait until 526 comes around, which is in a year from now. So that's a bit tricky. Well, it's not exactly a year from now because we're taking the time is taking. We already released half a year ago 524. So you might wait, or we might backport it, and then we'll release 524.1. The previous was 524.0. Then you're going to have 524.1, and then you can upgrade to 524.1. And what we maintain is that it will still be binary compatible, so nothing will break. We're not going to add new features. We're not going to make serious changes, but we are going to fix security stuff. So if there's a security bug, if there's a major thing that caused a very serious breakage that no one noticed until it actually rolled out to everyone's production, which is really rare, but it happens, security specifically, because security, you have to trigger it. Oftentimes nowadays you have to research it and trigger it. And 522.2 is available right now. We're going to release next one is 522.3, which means it's the 4th version of 522. We support 2 versions back. So you're always going to get updates that are crucial and important for 2 versions back of the current development and next production release. And that's actually a lot of work. We have voting on it, which tickets, we have a meta ticket, we track them, we backport them. Sometimes they're not easy to backport, sometimes a bigger patch. It's not easy to do, but we do it because it's important. We do not support more than 2 versions back. If it's a major security issue, we might actually still consider it, even though we should, technically by the policy. Okay, so I've been talking about changes. What kind of changes? Well, there are a lot of changes. I'm going to start with what happened before the latest version. A lot of people think, oh, I just want to know what the latest things are. But oftentimes, if we take a look at what happened in the last 7 years, people will recognize like 1 or maybe 2. So I'm going to cover things that I think are cool. You might have different definitions of cool, and then maybe we're not going to be friends, and that's fine. But I think they're very important to know, at least. So one thing is Unicode strings. Just a very quick poll. How many people know about it? Fantastic. This is my audience, right? You don't know about it. That's good. Because if you know about it, like, all right, next, never mind. So a long time ago, 5.14 released 5 years ago in 2011. It added full support for this. And what it does is add Unicode semantics to all of the string operations, right? So regular expressions and all the string operations that are executed, all of that stuff, it handles them in Unicode semantics and it avoids something called the Unicode bug. Almost all forms. The block package, I like this. So this is a common piece of code, package basic, my X, package advanced, print X. Now, let's avoid for a second that we use the same file or the same context for 2 packages. It shouldn't, it should be 2 different files. But let's say it isn't. Whoever was in Alva's talk earlier, when you print X, is this an error or will it work? How many people say, this will work, it will print 10? Raise your hand. Okay, how many people say, well, this shouldn't work, it won't, it will break because 10 is here and not here? Raise your hand. Great. So who hasn't raised their hand? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So the thing is that my actually confuses a lot of people. People think that my or that package, they create scoping. That's not true. The scope here is not the package. The scope is the file, which means that X defined with my exists everywhere here. It even exists here. If you were to do an hour, the hour is bound to the package, but my isn't. My is bound to a scope, which is tricky. It's confusing. But now we have this thing. And once you do this, you can align it. Now, the scoping here is very nice visually, but what it actually does also is enforce that my is within this scope, right? So it's kind of cool. I don't know if I can use this. Yeah, it's between this. All right, cool. Learn a new thing. So, yeah, I think it's kind of cool because it addresses a problem that people actually have with a very thin syntax change that is optional. It's very smooth, it's very clear. Getting small syntax changes like that are really hard on an advanced language because syntax is pretty much used already. And the funny thing is that you should not use this simply because you should not put 2 packages in the same file. But it's there. Custom ops. How many people know what custom ops are? Fantastic. How many people know what the ops are in general? Even better. I like that because you said, I know what custom ops are, but I don't know what ops are. Which is an interesting intersect. Okay. How many people know what the op tree is? How many people know what an AST tree is? What an AST is, trees in the name. Yes, eventually you're like, I think I do. So when Perl runs, a lot of programs, they go through compile time, and we like to distinguish Perl and Ruby and C, because like some of them have compile time, some of them don't have compile time, and C has compile time, but Perl is a scripting language, it just runs. But that's actually not true at all. Perl has a compile time. You actually compile the program and then decide what to do. And the compilation creates, in some languages, creates an AST, which is short for abstract syntax tree. In other languages like Perl, it creates an op tree, which is a similar thing. So Perl compiles the program and then decides, I analyze this code and understand it means I have to do these operations. Then it will also try to optimize them and say, if I have these 2 operations, I can actually make them in 1 operation. Screw this, I'll do 1 operation instead, it's faster. So you can do all these things, and then it just walks the tree of operations that it has to do. And Perl translates a lot of the operations that we have. I'm going to show an example of it later. Custom ops are the ability to create your own operations in the tree, which is really bizarre and awesome. Because now we can take, for example, a function that will take 17 operations. Because you have an addition, you have a function call, you have to create a list for them. There are different operations that the program has to do, that the compiler has to do, and the interpreter has to run. With custom ops, you can create one single op in the tree. One, to do all of them at once. Really, really, really fast. I have a talk about refutil, which is a module I wrote that uses this in order to take a pattern that we have, ref foo equals array or stuff like that, and then it turns into a function isArrayRef, and we use isArrayRef. It represents this one op. It's 3 times as fast as the correct solution. So that's not bad. But you can do this in Perl, which is really crazy good. Pluggable keywords, the ability to create your own keywords in the language. So you can use Perl as a parser, but then ask it to parse it the way you want it parsed. So you can write Ruby in Perl if you want to. You can introduce new syntax. You can do whatever you want. It's really bizarre, but you can do it. It's really cool. There's current sub. I like current sub. I'm going to start using it. This is an example of a function that recursively prints a tree. Fairly simple, not very bright, but I think it's pretty clear, right? We get a node. If we don't, we just return don't do it. And then we run the left side, then we run the right side, we print it in between. That's about it. I don't think there's a bug here. Now, let's say we wanted to do it in a functional way. How many people here know functional programming? Okay, a few brave souls. Way to go. Functional programming, in Perl, it's a multi-paradigm language. It basically means, oh, you do procedural? No problem. Oh, you do object-oriented? No problem. Oh, you want to do functional programming? Also fine. Perl basically allows you all of them. You just pick. And, it's pick your poison because they all suck. Everything sucks. But you get to pick the suck that you want. Right? So, okay. If you do it in wrong button. If you do it in a function, what you do is create a callback that does the print, and then the callback is run instead. You see here, right? This actually does have a bug. Does anyone know what the bug is?
The tree is not assigned until.
Right. So what I'm doing is defining the tree print variable by closing over the tree print variable as I'm defining it. That doesn't work, right? Because when I'm going to say this is equal to this thing that is equal to this in Perl. I don't know what this is because I haven't finished defining it yet. So the solution is very obvious. What you do is you create the variable, then you can have a sub and close over this. What's the problem here? This isn't a compile time bug. It will actually compile. It will also run. It will do it correctly as well. It's a different type of bug. Memory leak. There's a closure here. We're closing over ourselves, which means that we contain ourselves, which means that we continue to leak memory as we go. Very bad. So, okay, you think I'm going to solve this. No problem. I'm going to have this entire code, and then I'm going to call weaken from scalar util, and I'm going to weaken it, which basically means don't create a hard link between them. Just kind of separate these so I can close over it without it forcing another memory reference. Very cool trick. The only problem, it is not defined yet. So when you try to weaken it, it's going to say, that's not a thing yet. It has no values. So you can't, you're going to have to weaken it within it, and then you're going to, nope. I mean, you can do additional stuff. One of the things that you can do is the right solution to this actually, does anyone want to try what would be the correct way to do this in functional programming? If you've done a lot of it, then you know. If you haven't done a lot of it, then it's still a brain teaser. You actually have to have a callback that receives itself as a callback and returns a callback that receives itself as a callback. Super simple. This is why I have this. And then you get into stuff like the Y Combinator and stuff like that no one really understands. And then you have to think about extensibility and composability, and it's a mess. But Perl has this thing to help you. You can just use feature current sub, and then you have underscore sub. And we do the underscore sub underscores, it basically means this sub. That's it. It works in any sub, by the way. You don't need it to be a callback. Any sub could have underscore sub underscore. Oh, underscores. Right. So that's pretty simple. And now you avoided the entire thing. That's it. Pretty cool. Fold case function. How many people compare two strings of usernames or of words, right? You do this sometimes, right? But the problem is that while we do it this way, we just lowercase both of them and then compare. They're definitely the same. No, they're not. They're not. Not always. Unicode changes this completely. They will be the same byte-wise, but you want to compare string-wise. You want to compare that they actually are the same string. Has anyone seen the S in German? It's like such a mess, but it's a real language. I've heard. So it has to be a thing. So this is actually the wrong way to do it. Uppercase, also wrong, by the way. Doesn't fix it. What you need to do is this. The regex engine in Perl is Unicode aware. So if you compare a regular expression, it's actually going to know, oh, this character actually also means this character. I know this because that's how the language works. That's fine. The regex engine in Perl is amazing. So what you do is you still have to anchor it. So you put in the Q and E to make sure that it doesn't have itself regular expression items in it. So you just take the string as it is. That dash Q is for quote and dash E is for end. And then you need to use the caret, and then you need to use dash Z, backslash Z. And yeah, because there is a difference. I always get those confused. But then there's another thing that you can do. And of course, don't forget the case insensitive. So it actually knows that, there's a different solution, FC. It's one single function that will do something called fold case, in which it does like a lowercase or an uppercase, but to something that is Unicode aware fully, so it works. And you get this. I do like that FC was written by someone called FC. It's short for Father Chrysostomos, which is just easier for all of us to say FC or Father C. He implemented the FC. The regex set operations. Yes.
How in terms of like the performance you get using this instead of like EQ is like very big.
I'm not sure what the performance is. I'm sorry.
It's like much slower than using.
I don't think it's much slower. It shouldn't be. I really don't think. I would be surprised if it's much slower. But you have to take into account that you're not comparing bytes anymore. So comparing bytes really is fast. But it's also incorrect in a lot of situations. In some situations, it is correct. But wherever you do want to allow Unicode, and someone now puts their name in lowercase, you have to compare it properly. Because otherwise, it's not about speed. It's a bug. It's incorrect. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It should. That's what it should be. There is Unicode normalized, by the way, on CPAN, which also addresses this point. Very interesting to look into. All right. So regex set operations. How many people here use regular expressions? At least some, right? Regular expressions. So how many people here know what set operations are? Set operations allow you to do plus, minus, stuff like that between sets. So you could say I have a set and I have another set and I want an intersection of them. So this is a regular expression. And what it does is use the backslash p, backslash lower p, which takes an entire set, a script, in this case tie, and then allow, loation, and a digit, right? And then what it does is do a set operation on them. And the set operation says plus. So this set plus that set. And then the ampersand does an intersection. I was looking for complementary. So this basically checks for any digit that is either tie or loation. Isn't that cool? It's really nice. You basically say this is a digit that is one of these. I mean, we don't all know the syntax, so maybe you'll put a comment, but imagine the code if you didn't know how to do this. You have to take all the digits from this, all the digits from this, and then somehow intersect them yourself, which would probably be really long and doesn't make a lot of sense. Beautiful. Or you would have to do two checks. One, is it a digit? Then is it one of these, right? Because you have digits in other languages, like Arabic. All right, this is a different example. Any word character, except the lower ones, lowercase ones. That's super simple, readable code. It's beautiful, and it's a very complicated idea. lexical subroutines. One of the things that we complain about the most, we now have it, and I don't think anyone actually uses it. I'll explain it anyway, because I think it's cool. Let's say that you have an app. Notice I use the block here, no reason. Let's say that I have a new method, an invocant. I have a sub that provides information about it, which goes to the value element here. And if that is not defined, it will initialize the value and put it in there for future reference, and then return it. I love Perl because I can write stuff. I can write stuff like this, and it's very trivial. But to explain it, I have to use like 7 sentences in English. So it basically says, check this slot if there's a value. If there isn't a value, if there's a value in undefined, if there's a value and it's 0 or it's empty, that's fine. It's a value. But if there isn't a value, I would like you to retrieve a value, put it in there, and then return it. So then next time this sentence becomes, I already have a value. Use that. Beautiful. So it calls initialize value. And you'll notice that initialize value has an underscore at the beginning. What does that mean? Private, right? Now it's hidden. No one knows about it. No one can use it, except everyone can use it. Everyone can call it. Because subroutines in Perl are available by the namespace. If you use the full namespace, you can get to it. There is no protection around it. But now you have my. So you can put my sub. If you try to use this outside this package, it's going to say, I don't know what that is. Because it's no longer bound to the app class here. It's not. So when you call app initialize value, it's going to say it doesn't have a subroutine initialize value. And now we don't need those underscores. It really is private. It's pretty damn cool, right? No one uses it. Okay. Subroutine signatures. And one of the things that we complain about the most, we have it. It's really cool. It could be even cooler. There's a lot of work to make it really, really fast. So let's take sub foo, and then we have a left and a right. Very simple. Take the first one, take the second one, put them in. I can use it. We can also use them directly. We can also say, hey, I have another thing in the middle, but I don't want to give it a name. So just ignore that. It's fine. I want to give the others a name. You just put a dollar there. It's fine. You can also give a default value. Very simple. So if right didn't get anything, it is 0. It's great. We can also use variables that exist outside, and we can change them. Wow. Look at this. This is really cool, right? It's really cool. Yeah, we can use something that already exists in the signature, right? This is really, really nice. I like that. And of course, basically saying, and the other stuff. That's fine. And oh yeah, you can use a hash there as well. You don't have to use scalars and an app. You can use a hash and then get all the inputs. And, yeah, really nice. Very cool. Subroutine signatures. And they're now pretty much as fast as not using signatures, which is really good. And if I understand correctly, the plans are to make them faster. So now when someone says, oh, maybe we could use signatures, it's really nice. Someone else would reply, yeah, but it's also fast. So you should use it. So now you have an even better reason for a lot of companies, because for a lot of companies, they don't actually care whether you enjoy what you do, as long as the code is good, like it works. And if it works fast, that matters more than your convenience, which is fine. We're not meant to be comforted and feel good because we're developers. We're all about fixing stuff that are broken and annoying. But now you have a good excuse to use it, right? It's fast. We should use it. Yeah, it also is nicer for me. I don't care. It's fast. We should use it. All right. Okay. Key value slices. We're talking about slices. We're mentioning array slices with Alba's talk as well. We're touching a lot of stuff that were mentioned there. So again, wrong key. So let's say that we have a list of days. I usually use the angle here. I used to use something else. Please just don't put in like a hash or some weird key, but something like this. So you can do something called an array slice in Perl. People think that this scalar here actually means this is a variable. No, it isn't. This is what I want from this variable. And the at here says, I want multiple things from these variables. And then you can give multiple indices, which is indexes. I think it's supposed to be indices. And then you can say 0, which means the first. And then you can say -1, which means the first, but from the back. And we get the first and we get the last. So we get a list and then we apply to a list. It's really nice. And this already exists. This isn't new at all. How many people use this, by the way? You should use it. It's really, really nice. It's really, really cool. So yeah, the at, indices, and we get those two. We can also give a range. So I want just the weekdays. So that was 0 to 4. It's great. This is a good example. This is an array slice, but it's on a hash. So I actually take a hash called end, and I put an at there to say I want multiple values from the end hash. And then the hash access gives 2 keys. So in Perl Cs, there's a hash access here to end, which means that it has to be a hash. And then there's an at here. Oh, then we have to retrieve multiple values. And then it gets user and home, and then we apply user and home from a hash. It's very comfortable. I use it a lot. And then you don't have to write 2 lines, and it's like one operation. It's pretty cool. But what happens if you want to get the name of the value as well, the key of it as well? So let's take this hash, foobar buzz, each one has a value. These are really good examples because you definitely wrote code that has those, that text. So now we would do this, and we can have the at, and we can change that at to a hash, right? We change that sigil, and now we give 2 keys. You can use QW, you can use this. What it says is, I don't want just to receive the values of them. I want to receive the keys as well. I want to get a subset of this hash as a hash. And then you can apply it to a hash. So basically copied using these 2 keys, these 2 keys and values. So you get a pair. It's an actual hash slice when we say hash slice. So it's pretty nice. It's a key value slice. This is another example, A to Z. What happens if we take an array and do a hash slice key value in an array? Oh, what will happen now? Anyone want to try? Position. So in a hash, it's all keyed by a string key. In an array, they're still kind of keyed in a way, but it's the index, right? Or you could say that the hash, the key is the index. So in this case, we take those and we get this. And now we have 3 to D, 4 to E, 6 to G. I believe it's correct. All right. So, sorry? Yes, but if I put it in a list, I'm going to get those pairs in, right? So in this case, I put it in a list, in an array, in a different array. If I were to put it in a hash, yes, so we get 3 as a key, D is a value, 4 is a key, E is a value. Okay? All right, postfix dereferencing. This is a bigger change. It was highly discussed, and there were a lot of propositions, I don't know if a lot, but there were several propositions for how to do this. This is a different syntax that is, it is profoundly different. It changes how you do things. We think it's for the better. You don't have to use it. I've been told by people who use it that they now can't stop using it, which is either really, really good or really, really bad. So let's say that we have an array reference. We just use the backslash. We get a reference to an array. It's very simple. Now we do this. This is another way to do it, to dereference using 2 sigils, right? I hate this, by the way. I absolutely hate 2 consecutive sigils. I think it's very confusing when you have $. I remember someone saying, oh, there's only $1 there. What's the problem? The fact that you see $1 is the problem. You can use curly braces there to basically say, to clarify, I want to reference this thing. And you can also now put in an arrow and say, I want to do reference, and you put in a star. The star is always the same, but the at there says, I want to dereference it as an array. So it's as what, and then a star. That means that if I have an array ref like this that has 3 elements, the second being another array ref, if I want to reach something inside it, I can go to 1 and then take it out. Then I get the second item, which is an array. I get the actual array inflated. Or I can go to 1. Then I can go to at star. Another way. And the difference here might seem small, but the difference is really big in the sense of the direction that you go. So if you notice the way that I wrote this is usually how I write this, and I think a lot of other people write it the same way, where you start with, I'm going to go through it again, start with array ref, because that's what you want, and then you have to dereference it, and then you use the brackets to actually dereference as an array, and then you put in the index you want, and then you're going to have to dereference it again. But as soon as you get to the full dereference at the end, you have to go back and start from the top to curly brace parenthesize the entire expression. So you actually write forward and then go all the way back, which is really bizarre. But here you can just move forward all the time. Which is pretty cool. In this case, this is one example that I have all the time. I love this. Being able to move forward. I have a house, it's a hash ref, there are people inside it, and each person is key and value. So instead of doing keys and then doing the curly braces, assuming they'll reach there, or more likely writing the whole thing and then use the curly braces around there, I can just move forward all the time. Makes the reading much easier. Variable aliasing. How many people know what variable aliasing is? How many people know what aliases are in Perl? There's a thing called alias. It's pretty cool. Now you can do it via references. If you don't know what aliases are, you probably never needed to use it, and that's fine. If you know what those are, you can now do it by reference. Quick example. Damn it. Is this. By using the backslash, I can actually create an alias for it. And then if I change bar, I actually changed foo as well, because it's now an alias. It's not a reference, it's an alias, which means that I have a container pointing to the same place. An example of this is this way. If I have a hash, I can just retrieve the hash internally and just use it as a hash. And when I change that hash, I actually change the original hash in the array. It's not a copy, which is really nice. All right, so a lot of optimizations. I need to kind of cut it faster. Okay, so integer allocations. How many times do you use integers? Quite a bit, right? Use numbers. They're now much faster, like over 13% faster, which is not half bad. The regex has been optimized substantially. There's an optimizer that actually optimizes your regular expressions. It's pretty cool. We have copy on write, which is very, very important. We're actually looking into possibly changing that, how it works, to allow more things. I already mentioned the optimizer is just really good, so I'm mentioning it again. It's not a slide error that I hit every time. We have a strict regular expression syntax, so you can do this, and then it's much stricter in your regular expressions. The multi-dereference op, I love this. Short name is multi-deref op. So let's talk about operations for a sec. We have a reference here, C. We dereference it, go to the last from the end, and then we go to a keyhole and a key log and a key branch. And at the top of that branch, there's a frog. And does anyone know what this is about yet? Okay. At the end, there's a speck on the tail of the frog. And the speck, there's a fleck. Looks like this. This is, by the way, I think it's a nursery or something. There's a fleck on the speck, on the tail, on the frog, on the bump, on the branch, on the log, in the hole, in the bottom. Basically, this is what it means. Obviously, very readable. Okay. So if Perl compiles it and has to figure out what are the operations I need to do in order to get there, these are the operations. Now, this is not completely readable because there's a lot of cruft of opening the program, closing the program, running the code. I'm going to clean it up for you. It looks like this, right? Way better. But what you see here is that Perl actually says, I have to dereference this, and then I have to exit that, and I have to dereference this, and I have to exit that, and I have to reference this, and I have to exit that. And you can see here is RV to AV, which means take a reference and get the array from it, and then there's RV to HV, which means take a reference value and then get the hash value from it, and then you just dereference until you get to the end, and then and you can see the constants here of the whole log, branch, etc. In 522, we added something called the multi-deref op, and the multi-deref op takes this and changes it into this. Now, there is cruft here as well that I need to clean up. This is what it actually translates it to. And then it says, this is a multi-deref op with all these. Now, when you look at the comparison between these two, how many operations does this have versus this? Now imagine how fast it is to just run one thing instead of running one that passes to the other, it passes to the other, it passes to the other. So it's way faster. It's really, really, really awesome. 522. CGI is gone. We removed CGI. It's still available in CPAN. If you've ever seen my CGI Must Die talk, you would know why I have so many problems with this module. But it is still available, and CPAN actually had a few very important changes to it to kind of clean it up some more, and then it's basically out in the pasture, no one touches it. Okay, so let's talk about 524 a bit, because that's actually what I want to focus on, but not really what I want to focus on, but 524 has a few good things. And I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to take time. Okay, so removals. We've removed a bunch of stuff. We love removing things. Perl has a lot of history, which means it has a lot of stuff that can be removed. It's very hard to argue about removing them, but sometimes we can. One thing that we removed is the auto deref. The auto deref allowed you to do a push on a reference, and then it would go, oh, this is a reference to an array, then I'll push to the array that this references. Automatically. Except this caused so many errors at a distance that people didn't realize. Removed. Lexical, topical scalar, you could do for each my $_. No one really understood what this does. People misused it entirely, so that's gone. Bye. I wish we could, every time we remove stuff, I could just say, gone, bye. It actually it takes very long discussions. Nested declarations. You could do this. We were discussing this over dinner yesterday. You could do my, and then you could do another my inside. You could do our, and then my inside it. What does this do? I can think of 4 people who would know. I'm not one of them. And I've been explained this twice by so far, and I still don't know. And while it is technically possible to do mathematically, and it makes sense when you lay it out as math, no one understands this, and it doesn't add any features. This doesn't do anything that is new or useful. So we removed it. And if you only knew how many arguments there were about removing it. Okay. So chdir, or shdir, as some people say, I love hearing it. If you gave something false, it would automatically go to, if you gave an explicit false, it would go to the tilde to home. And this created really interesting patterns. So if you were to do chdir and empty, what would this do? If you gave undef, or if you give a value and it wasn't def, all these situations. So when you do chdir with an empty one, it will act like in Unix, where it just goes to home, it does what you wanted, and how many times it's going to happen. And the rest, at least this one now fails, this one now fails. Okay? And the value really depends on what the value is. Okay. Stuff that we fixed in 524. Integer overflow in line numbering. Perl has line numbering of files for a lot of stuff. It's really cool. We had an integer overflow. That's fixed. Explicit branches, braces, in regex. So what does this do? Backspace D, and then in braces 2. 2 digits, right? This is not a trick. This is a trick. Backspace, backslash D, and just empty braces. What does this do? Literal braces. It says, I want a digit, and then I just want braces, right? You're lucky that my editor knows that. But if you do just braces, is it a quantifier or is it explicit braces? It's explicit again. So none of these will work anymore. Instead, if you want explicit braces, escape them. Destructive search and replace in place. The ProPy, which is P-I and E, the execute and then change the file in place, that's what the I is for. What it did was it would read all of it and then it would replace it and then write it back, but sometimes there was not enough memory. Oops. So this was fixed. This is interesting. So I have this times 8. What does this do? I've been in a place that said, I don't know, that was weird. So we get this thing, that's fine. That's not a problem. What happens if we put, instead of 8, 2 to the power of 40? Whoops. So this will trigger a different error now, which is better. I like this. So this will basically just exhaust all your memory and you'll die. But this is better than Perl basically going nuts. Instead, it will do what you want to do. If it kills your system, hey, get a better system, right? Okay. Some optimizations we did in 524. So all of the simple arithmetics are faster. Plus, minus, times, divide. All these are much faster now, which is really, really important because we tend to use math. The stack context, the context stack, which a lot of people don't actually know, has been completely reworked, which means that that's not the interesting part for you. The interesting part for you is that calling subroutines in Perl 524 is much faster now, which is awesome because you use subroutines. Fixed string matches, when you do something like this, is now optimized a lot. Some new features like the postfix deref that you saw previously, it's in for good. It's in, that's it. We restored the support for Amiga OS. We have Unicode 8. Some things in Unicode 8 that I think are important, the ability of all of these people and all these that use all these languages can now express themselves using Perl. So they now fully exist and not just sort of. They have full support in Unicode 8, and because we support Unicode 8, they can write natively in their own language. They can analyze their own language natively in Perl. I think it's very important and very interesting. I want to give an example of some stuff in it. Let's say we use 524, full char set names. We can actually use some stuff. And the \uppercase N allows you with the full char names to actually use the full Unicode names for stuff. The zero with joiner allows you to join things together without any spaces in between them. So you can do something like a variant selector, which is a color. And you can use something like a shape of a black heart. And mixing them together actually gives them a color. You can take a woman, you can take a kiss mark. We do it in encoding 8. You can use the zero with joiner to actually create one image of all of these elements put together. It creates this element in Unicode. In real Unicode, it doesn't generate a picture. It creates a character of it, which is amazing. By the way, my terminal cannot represent this. My Firefox cannot represent this. Chrome could not represent this. Effectively, everything on my computer was not smart enough to show what my dead language can do. So my dead language was much more up to date than everything else on my computer. There's a diversity system that allows you to apply coloring also to characters. So you can represent people better. This is an example I gave of, this uses the Fitzpatrick modifier for skin tones. These are two characters from history who had a relationship that they could not have at that time. And we're able to present it properly with appropriate skin tone to actually represent people the way they are. And I think it's very, very crucial. It's very, very important. It's not just to make like nice red hearts, even though those are important in the world. I think being able to represent yourself, being able to be who you are, being able to speak in your real language, these are very important concepts. So what happens to the future? This is kind of where I actually finished talking. So some fixes. These are things we've already done. POSIX temp name removed. It's really bad. Use file temp instead. The hat encoding, I don't know how people know this. It's really bad as well. It was removed. There are a few other stuff. There's filter encoding. Encoding PM has filter as well. Use those. Or better yet, don't do what this does. You used to be able to require and then put double colons at the beginning. You can't do that anymore. The explicit curly braces in 524 removed entirely. Before that, it deprecated and through warnings. We cleaned up as much as we could of CPAN, and now it's gone. You can use 2 X's on a regular expression. We want to be able to use that in the future to do interesting things. So for now, it's just removed. This doesn't crash anymore. Important. Someone found that it crashes. Now it doesn't. The things that people do with Perl are like, I don't even know. Like, how do you reach that? They did. There was a small bug in a previous version that actually changed what happens when you put a scalar, double colon, and another scalar. You combine them differently, so now it's fixed. And we're actually thinking about adding script runs, so you could do a regular expression match for a characters, but make sure that they're within the same script run. So there's an interesting Unicode attack where you provide different characters that use Unicode. They look exactly the same, but they're not the same. And then your program breaks because you, for example, don't do case folding when you need to recognize Unicode. So, or it's something someone uses, stuff like that, visually. So there's a really interesting attack, and it looks like a D. It isn't a D. So interesting. So we're thinking about adding script runs to the regex engine. So you could also say I want from this same script. So when I want to say like these words or these characters, I want them, like when I want digits, I only want digits from the same script, not digits one from this language, one from that language, one from this language. I don't care which language you use, just one script. Those are some of the ideas that we have. We removed Usenet of documentation, very important. There are some optimizations we did. Bare word constant strings are now constant folded. This is actually pretty damn cool. Signatures, they've been heavily optimized. They will be heavily optimized in the future as well, probably. The default collation UTF-8 locales, unsupported platform, we'll use those. Unicode 9 is already in. We already have it. It's released in the development versions, and it will be in 5.26. It's cool because it adds a bunch of stuff. For example, avocado. Everyone's excited about pancakes and whiskey. I'm excited about avocado. Actually, other than avocado, it introduces all of these things. So these are a lot of actual people, real people that will now with Unicode 9 be able to express themselves as well and transcode their scripts to digital format and use it and analyze it and do research on it. It's really interesting. Some more features, other Unicode 9, syntax improvements for the referencing, the way I showed you. Recognition of version control markers. So if you accidentally did a merge and then you accidentally added the markers for saying, no, you need to resolve this, you accidentally added it, now it won't compile. Like, forget running, it won't even compile. Perl's going to say, I think you have a version control marker here, you made a mistake. It's really cool. GCC has it and Perl has it now. I've actually seen code in a company I worked at in PHP that they added, it was just too big of a merge. They just added everything and nothing worked anymore. And then we noticed in the source that there were like markers in the HTML. So Perl actually not compile. Next. Okay. Unicode script extensions, which are actually more correct Unicode scripts. The const subroutine attribute, indented here docs, probably going to go in. There's the capture, which I just added today because it was committed, I think, last week, which is awesome. This week it was committed. So now it exists, not yet in a development version. But what it does is take this pattern of I have A, B, and C, there are 3 captures, and then I'm going to apply them to variables. We've all done this. And of course, we can apply them right away. We can also then check for whether they all exist. How many people have written code like this? I wrote the week someone introduced it was this week. I wrote that week 4 statements to do this. It drives me nuts. I actually write it this way. I think it's a bit clearer. This and this and this, or croak. I like this. But I wrote like 4 times this thing. And now we have, let's say that this one has a question mark. But it says, well, maybe. Well, now you have to check. Do I have $3? So I can do checks and stuff like that. But now we have the cat capture, which just gives you all of them as an array. So you can check for it, whatever you want. It's pretty cool. And it resolves a lot of these patterns. All right, what else? Who knows? I want to end with a very small example. Do I actually have like less than, do I have 30 seconds? I have 5 minutes? I have 3 minutes? It's amazing. Okay, just keep going down. Okay, so in a Python, the first Python book, I believe, gave an example of the differences in Python and how it looks like, and it compared to Perl. And what it did was basically say, here's an implementation of something in Perl. What it was doing a sum of an array, of 2 arrays. And it showed how Python looks like in comparison. And this is not a knock on Python. It's a very nice language. It has very nice syntax, and it really tried to show what it excels at. It did a good job at it. Unfortunately, it didn't use Perl the way a Perl developer would use it, especially if you take into account some of the developments that we have. So I want to show you the differences. This is the Python implementation. It's very smooth. It's very clean. It's very clear. You have 2 lists going in because they actually represent lists as an item and not just as a complete flattened stuff that you need to get back. You create a result, and then you go through the range, putting each one in I using the length of the first list, and you append to the result the sum of both of those parts, and you return it. Simple, smooth, clean, easy. The Perl example was this. You take 2 arguments, you create a result, you dereference each one. I hate this. And then you go over each one, C style, by the way, and then you push into the result the sum of both of those, and then you return the result in a reference to it. I rewrote it. Now, what we have here is subroutine signatures. So we got that, no problem. Then what we have is an array ref at the end already. The array ref will contain the result of a map. The map receives 0 till, and notice what I did here. I took the first list, I dereferenced it using the $hash, which gives me the last index. You can see that it's the postfix deref. It's very nice. I could have done it differently, similar syntax, but I wanted to use this. And then what basically I'm creating a list of all the indexes, 0 till the last index. I put them all in the map, and the map takes the first item of this index from list 1 and the item of this index from list 2, adds them together. It does it for all of these indexes, and all of them get put into an array, which is returned. To get the last index. If you were to put an @ it would give you the last, the amount of items in a scalar context. Okay. So, pretty damn cool. This is how I write this. Maybe put in return to be explicit, but this doesn't actually use additional variables, so this is more efficient in memory as well. Nice. All right. So HUL said the task is only beginning of a beginning, and you can take a look at the stuff that we're doing in Perl with the Perl 5 quarters main list. It's actually pretty. There's a lot of chatter there, a lot of chatter. So if you don't want to get into all those details and it's kind of too confusing, and you want to just know what's going on, I maintain weekly summaries that you can just look up either on Twitter or in my blog post. I pretty much blog just about that right now. And the Perl 5 summary mailing list is just the summaries and emails. So you get an email once a week with a summary. Or you can register the Twitter feed or the blog's Perl feed. And you can know what's going on every week in the Perl core development. That's all the time I have. Thank you very much. I don't think we have time for questions. So if you want, I will probably be around. So feel free to catch me and complain, yell.
I think there is a switch. Yeah.
Here it is.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good. It has been recorded. Yes. Maybe when we have some.
All right.
It has been nice. I do not have any knowledge about Perl, and I find most of the features of the language very confusing for me. But I love the ideology, the inclusive feeling that you have around people and community. I love that part.
The trick with promos and with workshops, all of that. The trick is this: we do these events as an excuse to get together. So now you have an excuse to get your boss. That's it. Okay. The most is just to get together. To be a big community. It's a very good reason. Because you can tell us, no, this is very important. You can watch the talk. No, it's very, very important for me to be there. No, but you can read the documentation. No, it's very important for me to be there. And then we just hang out.
Okay. Maybe that way of contacting yourself here is something that it is transmitted to the language, because the way you have a strong feeling of you transmit the love for the platform. But on the other hand, the bad part is that for people like me, that we are outsiders, it is difficult to get into this.
Well, how do we change that? That's something. That's much more important.
I'm not really sure because
no one is born. It's kind of like I can compare it to a lot of things, but in short, no one is born a pro developer, and no one is born part of the community. You join a community, you learn a language, etc. So none of us actually started. The question is how do we make sure everyone feels comfortable together?
I'm actually comfortable with most people here are really in love with them, and I don't have any problem with them at all.
Yeah.
The opposite. But to get involved, to start to develop small things with this language for us is quite difficult because because
I'm sorry for overshooting the time. 10 minutes, I think.
You have to run it.
Okay.
Anem a prendre cartes.
We're heading for the food? Food, yeah. Okay, how will we continue this?
Yeah,
I would love to.
Talk later.